Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Mike DeHaan and Dan Austin. From wins, losses, horror stories, and tactics for optimizing your business, Mike and Dan take a real, uncensored deep dive into the ins and outs of running a full-time real estate investment and wholesaling business.
What's going on, everybody? On this episode of the Collecting Keys podcast, we have Zach Lemaster. I said that right, correct?
You're right on.
Yeah,
Lemaster.
Lemaster with Rent to Retirement.
Yes.
If you've listened to Bigger Pockets, you've probably heard his ads, probably seen him on the Bigger Pockets forums. I mean, you've been around for quite a while, and fun fact, I've actually one of your customers buying one of your turnkey properties a number of years ago now, I guess 2.5-ish years ago out in Minnesota during a 1031 exchange. But you do turnkey properties, you've wholesaled, you're doing these build to rents now, you're a broker, you just said, you're kind of just all over the place. You're like a true real estate entrepreneur, which is exactly what we like to hear. So maybe just give us a little bit of your background, kind of where you started, where you're going, like what you've done, where you're going now. Give us all the good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dan, Mike, appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah.
This real estate, I mean, we love real estate, right? I mean, we're super passionate about real estate. That's why we're all here. And I think similar to you, left a former profession to invest in real estate full time because we believed in it. This is what we were passionate about, and this is what we were ultimately successful with. But just a little bit of cliff notes, I guess, about my story, Mike and Dan. I mean, I started in the healthcare profession. So I'm an optometrist by education. So is my wife. That's where I met her. We, went down that path. I was on Air Force scholarship, was in the Air Force for, close to 7 years if you count the scholarship time. And, basically that's where I started investing in real estate. First house I bought was a duplex house, hacked it, rented out half, lived in the other half, and then moved out of that one and did the same thing again. And then continually bought more and more real estate. One thing I tell people is and this was probably about 15 years ago at this point, but ever since that first duplex, which was our first investment property, we've bought more and more real estate year after year. And that's just really allowed us to scale our portfolio. We really enjoyed real estate from the simple fact of, we could basically replace our income. And that's the point that we got to at some point many years later, is basically being able to replace our optometry profession through real estate. We retired from that. We still practice, on a volunteer basis now, but we're pretty much full-time into real estate. We took the leap, similar to you, that's learning how to invest out of state. And for us, that was very much of finding the best opportunity locally. And we live in Colorado now, close to Denver. So, it's actually a very challenging market to find cash flowing properties in the residential space. We don't buy here for residential. We invest in multiple different areas where we can achieve better returns. And that's what allowed us to catapult our, investing career, to really invest in these different areas, diversify, scale up quicker, obtain better returns, and just really be more successful. And that was a foundation of our business, Rent to Retirement. We're a turnkey provider. And so we offer investment opportunities that are either newly built, renovated, leased, and managed for our investors in multiple different states that we've identified as having meeting our investor metrics. And that was very much just the foundation of us being successful investors in these different areas, and our friends and family and colleagues saying, hey, we want to do the same thing you're doing. But we don't have the time, we don't have the knowledge, we need some assistance with that. And so that's really where we built our business. And so fast forward where we're at today, we have a team of close to 20 people that work with us. And we have, we're probably doing between 50 to 60 houses a month on the turnkey side. A lot of those are on the marketing side for those, but they meet our investment standards. And we take a lot of that money and put it into our own investment properties. We buy a lot of commercial assets and run cost segregations on those. So that's kind of a fast forward where we're at.
Wow. Nice. I just want to point out how gangster it is that you were able to replace 2 optometry salaries with your investment portfolio. I feel like most people, their goal is, I want $5,000 a month. And that's how I started, but you're replacing big money with your rentals. That's awesome.
Yeah. And
optometry gets, we're not, we're lower tier of the healthcare professionals, there wasn't much, but
still, it's a good career. It's a good career.
It's a really good career, right? So good for you. That's awesome. And then, kind of like you said, set the foundation as well. For, I guess, getting into those turnkeys, like you said, your colleagues and things like that are looking for those different investment opportunities without having to put in all the dirty work of people that want to be buying fixer uppers and that sort of stuff, which in my mind, correct me if I'm wrong, that's kind of like the target demographic for most people that you work with is probably a lot of people that are looking to get started and aren't quite ready to get their hands dirty, or there's somebody who has surplus cash, they have a high paying job, and their time's probably better spent buying, these turnkey properties, something that requires less work. But they're still able to get a good return because you're basically doing a lot of that upfront for them. Is that correct?
100%. Yeah, that's our typical demographic is the people, busy professionals. They want to own real estate. They don't want to be active investors. People that live in expensive markets where they can't really invest. Look, there's a high barrier to entry. People that want to diversify and scale. And we also have people that are really active investors too that also just want to tap into a new market. Or do, add that alongside what else they're currently doing. So
yeah, for sure. And I mean, in working with someone like you that sort of overcome that fear of getting out of your home market, I think is so valuable. And that was the big thing for me back when I bought properties with you was, I was trying to find opportunities locally. At that point, I was doing 1031 exchange and I couldn't find anything local that really made sense for the cash flow that I needed. So working with you to be able to find these properties, I live in Washington State, being able to find in Minnesota, it was sort of got me over that hump of like having to learn to delegate. And like, I really don't have to walk through the kitchen of every property that I look at, and as we've grown our business, it's been very easy to carry those same principles, even in properties that we do here locally in the Spokane market, is we don't need to go and walk through all of them. We're happy to buy and do our due diligence off of photos or trusting other people, just like we do in all of our virtual markets now as well. So, but yeah, that's great though. So I guess, how did you initially get started with that? Because that's a very different model, providing turnkey properties than a lot of people who are, wholesaling like we are, or they're working with realtors in these different markets. I guess, how did you go from I'm trying to buy properties to now I'm going to be like a turnkey provider?
We wanted to invest let me back up. We bought turnkey. The first two properties that we bought were Southside Chicago. I think you guys are active in Chicago, so you know that market. If I remember, like 74th Avenue, I don't know. It was deep south. Okay. They were like D class assets, high end renovation. Not very good property management. Actually the guy we bought them from, who managed properties, he died a year after we bought him. That was unfortunate, and he was a young guy with kids. Really sad, but we were in a position where just like, man, we just got dumped on these things, and we got to figure it out. And through that process, we figured out how to build our team. We built our team on the management. We had to find contractors. I mean, that's really what this is all about at the end of the day, is building the right team, no matter what location you're in. And so we built our team and turned those properties around to be successful. Had to figure out the CHA, the Section 8. And that wasn't a fun thing to do. And basically that was a baseline that we built that same model in different locations. We had standards we wanted property management to adhere to. We had standards on the rehab on the properties that we wanted done appropriately. And we just replicated that based on a market that we identified that we wanted to invest in. And that was very small scale. I mean, we'd be doing a few properties a year in maybe one or two locations. But as we joined these networks and we started to see some success, and people just naturally migrated to us and said, hey, we want to do the same thing with you. All we have to do at that point in time is partner with the right people and then scale up what we were already doing, because the foundation was laid. And so I think that was really just a natural progression of what we were already doing, Mike.
Yeah.
Was there anything when you first started out, like, and that you do now when you're looking at a remote market, like a virtual market, how do you pick that?
I mean, there's a lot of criteria. We have fundamental criteria that we look at. We want to be in areas that are really in the path of progress. I think at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. But there's different things. I mean, a lot of the build to rent stuff we do in Southwest Florida is specifically because that market is exploding, and we've never seen this type of discrepancy between supply and demand that we have in this area. So, I mean, those are areas where you likely will have strong rental demand. We try to build below the median house price point, so you don't have as much potential market fluctuation. But generally, Dan, we want to be an area that you have a large rental demand. You have relatively affordable house prices, so you can still cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
Where you can obtain, well, some cases landlord-friendly legislation. Sometimes will vary from that a little bit, Minnesota, Mike, but
Mm-hmm.
it's all about. It really comes down to the team, having the right team. So there's a market as a whole, but then on a microeconomic scale, what areas within that location do we want to focus on? Areas where you're in the path of progress. We have people that attend city planning meetings and look, okay, where's transportation and jobs being created over the next 10 years? We want to be in areas that have a diversity of industries. And often what we found is if we really like an area that is, it's too expensive to really cash flow in, we look at secondary and tertiary markets adjacent to there, and those have more affordable price points, but you kind of have that bleed off effect where you can still have viable rentals. So there's a lot that goes into that. But at the end of the day is, choosing location, then building the actual team there. There's some areas that we want to tap into. We just haven't also found the right people there. So
Yeah, I think that
Right.
tertiary market comment's huge. That's been a lot of places that we've gone as well, is, basically find out where's everyone on Bigger Pockets talking about, and find like the nearest city that's
The
not
closest one to that. Yeah, exactly.
that's also like a
Yeah.
good size and having growth,
yeah,
Like,
no, that's
yeah.
100%. And even so I was stationed in North Dakota out of the gates, and I remember some of our I should say deployed. I typically say deployed to North Dakota, but what some of the first wholesales and rental properties we did, they were farms, legit farms. We wholesaled some farms. It was
Wow.
just like nowhere, but there's still demand, and no one else was in there doing it. So
Wow.
but there's opportunity if in a lot of locations if you look.
Yeah, that's interesting. So so you said you find like partners in all these different markets for, your turnkey provider, you're helping fix them up. But you're not taking title to all these places, right? Like you're not actually buying them and fixing them up yourself and then selling them. At least I don't assume so. Like what is
Probably
that?
about 5%.
Okay.
The vast majority. And when we first started out, we were the ones in there, taking the financing out, doing the crews, and at one point even property management as well, which I realized very quickly that I was not meant to be in the property management business. But really it was having standards and a system that we then implement in these different locations with the right people that we're practicing with. So yes, at this point in time, vast majority of stuff that we have, it's a marketplace. Rent to Retirement has turnkey properties that is being sold for our partners in these locations that meet our standards for building, for rehab, as well as management. And we have a very strict vetting process that they have to go through. And often these are people that we've actually personally worked with to a degree as well. And so that's kind of the model now.
Gotcha. Yeah, that you already touched on my question. I was going to ask, how do you like vet these people and ensure quality? Because turnkey providers get a bad rap, right? Like, I mean, just like wholesalers do, right? Like, if you can sell whatever people want to hear because you kind of have all the knowledge. Like people will say wholesalers will conceal information from people, which I mean, some of them will. And then same with like a turnkey provider. It would be very easy for someone to go and just like put lipstick on a pig and turn it as like sell it as it's a fully renovated property when they know fully well that behind the walls is just a disaster. So, and that's made even more complex by the fact that you're having partners that are doing a lot of those renovations. So I guess, how do you like more specifically maintain that quality? I'm just curious, because I'm sure a lot of people that would be interested in, buying turnkey property, that's one of the first things they would ask.
And that's a tough thing. That's that's a really good point, Mike, because, and we could probably talk an hour just on this aspect, but there's been a lot of our partners that we fired, on the management side, fired on the rehab side. And sometimes they do a good job, and then they, if you lose a few good people and don't do a good job. But I mean, we have a clear process and line item by line item and expectations in large things like your mechanicals and HVAC and roof. And not everyone's perfect. I mean, especially on the management side, like, look, management is a hard business because you're constantly going through people. You got mad owners, you got mad tenants, it's, but I mean, communication and accounting is the biggest thing on the management side. I think that's where 95% of the problems occur. But really, when you have a dialed in partnership with someone, and we got some people right now that's just like, it's full trust and full accountability because we've been through that process with them so much, and we just know that they produce. maybe we had to go through in the first few properties we like maybe personally bought with them or rehab, because we actually fund a lot of them too, and so we're actually tied to the private lending side,
Mm-hmm.
and so we have a financial interest to ensure that the house is doing well.
Mm-hmm.
But we have standards that they need to meet on the front end, and then we hold them to that. And if they fall short on something, we also hold them accountable, right? It's the post-closing issue, like, hey, if this is something that you truly missed, you need to go back in and fix it and make it right for the client, because really that's how we create. And we have a very good reputation in the turnkey space, which is hard to do. You mentioned that earlier, because there are so many bad operators in the turnkey space. But reputation is everything for me. And if we got to bite the bullet and pay for stuff post closing, we will do that. But the providers mainly, they know that if they want to continue to maintain business with us, they also have to do right by the client. But then there's also things that are outside of that too. You have some crazy people that are on the buyer side that have unrealistic expectations. They own a property for 3 years and they got to replace the HVAC. It's like that stuff happens, and so it's setting clear expectations. And also on the front end, from the buyer perspective, you need to take responsibility, whether you're buying from turnkey or otherwise. You got to go through the same due diligence, have your inspections, and meticulously go through that. You cannot ever think in real estate that you're just buying a property and everything's just going to be okay. You got to go into it having reserves, go through the same due diligence, and sometimes that's a learning process. But you get the same steps.
Yeah, and I think that's super valid, and it is funny. I think that people that aren't initiated in real estate, they tend to forget that, like you said, things happen, like regardless of how new a property is. I live in a new build house, and we had a water leak that like flooded our master closet. Right, this house was built less than a year ago, but that just happens, right? Like there's nothing you can do about it. It's just there was a faulty part, something ruptured, and we had to have a plumber come in and fix it.
That's part of the game.
Exactly.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. So cool. So I guess with your business, with how it's sort of structured, I'm curious, like, do you have a lot of like repeat clients? Like, what is your typical, your business look like in terms of like your customers? Is it like what is the main person that's looking from like a
maybe the avatar?
What is your ideal avatar for your business?
The I guess general client that we see the most, and we have quite a variety. Actually, it's interesting to see some people come through that are really successful investors in real estate, and they just want to diversify, or they have this multi-million-dollar portfolio they want to maybe transition into different locations in 1031. But I would say the vast majority are people that are, like we talked about earlier, wanting to get started, or high-paid professionals that want to own real estate but be more of a passive investor than really like having to go out and find and analyze, acquire, and manage the property itself. So that would be the typical person, and most people are repeat clients. I think in this business, I mean, we have over a 70% recurrence rate with investors. Sometimes that means they're coming back 3 to 4 to 6 months and buying another property or a few properties. Sometimes that takes 1 to 2 years. That really just depends on the individual and where they're at that point in time with their financial and investing goals. But I think the big picture is that most people are trying to, when you're thinking about financial independence in real estate, this is a long game, and it takes building a portfolio. No one is in this game, or at least they shouldn't be, to buy 1 or 2 rentals and call it good. You got to stay the course of consistently building your portfolio. We have some people that bought some turnkey properties with us and then went out and built an exceptional business. And so that's super cool to see, and I love that aspect, because I think sometimes turnkey you look at it as, I mean, and some people try to classify it as like, oh, if you're doing turnkey, it's it's this or this, like syndication or turnkey, right? And it's like you got to choose sides. Well, real estate doesn't work like that. I mean, real estate is really, in my opinion, in our experience, there's multiple different strategies that you can be successful in at once. And typically the successful people are doing multiple things. So we do have some people that are investing in turnkey just because they're at capacity with their time, with their active projects. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we buy right now, I would consider like high level turnkey stuff. And this is a lot of commercial triple net leases. These are the things that, I mean, we don't really acquire too many value adds anymore at this point, just because I don't have the time and capacity, and we're looking to just make it simple, put a lot of money in one place at one time, get some tax benefits, and leave it at that. But I think that hopefully I answered your question about the typical investor.
No,
that's good.
Yeah, that's super good. So I guess then, I'll ask the second question I was going to ask. I had a follow-up one.
Well, I'll ask
Yeah,
this then too, because like one of the things that I'm thinking about, when you talk about the typical avatar and people buying, like, you know, Mike, in your situation, you already owned your own rental properties and were managing them, and you still went turnkey. You know, it's like this diversification thing, and there's different. I think there's different seasons in your investing life too. When, like you said, Zach, when you might not have time, right? But then you're Mike, and you buy those, and then you go on and build this giant, you know, real estate business that him and I are running. But what I was going to say is, for a lot of your clients, you mentioned earlier too, on the commercial side of things with cost seg, if somebody like myself or Mike come in and we're going to buy, say, 10 turnkey properties, we got to 1031 some money, or we got to do something, park some money. Do you have the ability to help walk a client through cost seg on the single family portfolio, or is that not worth it? And you're just focused more on the commercial side of things when it comes to that, because taxes are obviously a huge part of real estate as a benefit.
Yeah, good question, Dan. I want to hit on a few different points that I think you just brought up. Is that the short answer is yes, we're going to walk them through it, but we're also going to incorporate the right professionals to do that. Right. We have relationships with guys that will do cost seg studies, and a lot of them on single family. Typically, on single family with a cost seg, you're not going to go out and have a full engineered report.
Right.
They'll generally look at they'll be able to give you an estimation on that you'll be able to use for taxes, just based on like some data about the house. Right. And maybe it's like $700 to $900 per house to do that. And if you're a real estate professional, then, and you plan to hold those properties, then all day long, the numbers make sense to do a cost seg. Whereas like on a commercial property, it could be 10 to 20 grand for a report where you're getting a legitimate engineer and it's a detailed report. But we try to help people build a comprehensive kind of plan and network with the right people. Same thing with real estate specific attorneys and CPAs that we personally work with. And we've just added to our network over the years. Same thing on 1031. Most people don't know, like most 1031s actually fail, and people don't complete their 1031 successfully simply because especially in a scenario where you're selling one property trying to buy multiple. And if you're working with multiple different sellers in multiple different locations, like, you know, it could take one seller to really screw up your 1031. And there's a lot of working parts with that. So, we have a 1031 qualified intermediaries, as well as like, okay, let's focus on a business plan to effectively accomplish your goals with this 1031 and walk you through it.
Wow. Yeah, I like that. I just like the idea. And like you were talking about doing some build to rent stuff, as just layering that cost seg on top of your say 14-15% return, or whatever the return is that you're buying on like a new build. And then you're just layering in that maybe it's a couple, $2,000-$3,000 for the additional cost seg instead of doing straight line depreciation, but that's going to help you, reduce your taxes so much more. And then when you're looking at 1031, there's just layers and layers that you can do of why you might choose, a turnkey rental provider in this situation, where you can just gain access to so many things that would be a pain in the butt to do in yourself. Like Mike and I own several properties in the single family, small multifamily, and we've just never done cost seg on them. We know it's not always worth it, and we've researched a little bit, but you know what? We just do 27.5 years straight line depreciation. We're not maximizing it on a portfolio level, but if you had the help and you had the opportunity to do it, it seems like it would make sense.
Yeah, I think it's just setting people up for success and at least providing some education. At the end of the day, it's really what it's about. We have the professionals in place to assist them if they need it, but sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. When we first learned about cost seg, and all the other things that the 2017 Tax Act really allowed for us with opportunity zones and some other things, it's like, man, that's just opened the door, because that's the biggest. We talked about this a little bit previously on Mike when we had you on our podcast, but the easiest way to give yourself a huge raise is just pay less taxes, and real estate there's nothing else that comes close to that. So there's so many, even from a passive investor, even without doing accelerated depreciation, just the normal benefits from real estate. That's why there's more millionaires made in real estate than any other asset class, and why people build generational wealth. It's just building that, doing the tax advantages of what is available to them and passing those on for generational wealth.
Yeah. And I think that's so right too. And that is one of the great things about real estate is, it's not necessarily a get rich quick scheme, but it is a get rich guaranteed scheme if you do it over a long period of time.
Consistency.
Yeah.
I do want to ask, like, maybe go back to the genesis of your business. because Mike and I are, we're trying to build our empire, and a lot of our listeners are also like starting their own business or like right in that kind of early real estate investor stage. Like just like maybe transform back to that time, because it had to have been crazy for you, because you're leaving the Air Force. I'm assuming you were already into real estate, and then you're buying, and then eventually become this turnkey provider. This genesis of this business. Any tips or tricks or comments, considerations for people in that early phase when you're just in that grind and it's just you are a solopreneur or your business is so small, you're doing everything and you're just kind of pulling your hair out?
Yeah. And for context, really quick too, I'm just curious, when exactly did you start? I failed to ask that before. Like, how long ago?
Yeah, I think our first, starting in like our first property, starting in the turnkey or
starting, like, when did you buy your first property? How long ago was that?
Yeah, I think that was around 2009. It was when we bought that first duplex, or close to that. And we held that one for many years, and and then actually 1031 out of that one into multiple. On the turnkey side, we've probably been in the business for about over 10 years at this point. But in the first few years, I mean, it was very much like, we're building our own portfolio. Maybe we brought someone, a couple of friends and colleagues that we were either lending money or, I would say like core business, multiple different markets, probably 6 or 7 years. But going back to your question, Dan, about like, first of all, I mean, we're all in this hustle. If you're an entrepreneur, especially in the real estate game, like it just takes more work. And it's like sometimes the chaos never goes away. And sometimes, you also get to the point, I think you go through these ebbs and flows. And sometimes, hopefully, you see some success and some benefit. And you're like, man, this is cool. And you live this like lifestyle. I mean, my wife and I, after we got married, we took 7 months and went to like 30 different countries and, did that. And now we have, kiddos, so we can't do that anymore. But at least at that point in time, that was fully, and that was right when we left optometry. But we were able to do that simply because real estate, you can. I mean, if you build a system, you can go and do that from any location. But yeah, there's some times where it's a 24/7 type of scenario. But I think of what a lot of people find themselves. I think there's different points that you get to. The first is the brand new investor that's never bought a house. Like, how do you get over that hump? Well, just buy your first house. I mean, that first one in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter financially, but it does mentally and emotionally. So that's the first thing, is just stop reading books, stop listening to podcasts, just buy your first damn house and go out and do it. And then from there, buy your next one, right? And just continually buy. And that's really what it boils down to. And then managing those challenges along the way. At some point, as you're making this a legitimate business, you'll get to the point where it's like you're still wearing multiple hats and doing everything in the business, but you eventually will create systems, and then you can replicate that and eventually try to remove yourself. And that's being done, I think, by adding the right people. Sometimes you got to go through some wrong people to find the right person, but when you find the right people that are really, they understand the business and they're vested, then it allows you to take a step away. So I think it's a constant transition, and you always have a ton of obstacles and issues, and we've lost a lot of money with different partnerships and bringing in the bad people, or not the most appropriate people. But I feel like I'm rambling now. So
no, I love what you're saying. I love what you say about just buying your first house. It's so true. And then it happens before you know it. Just this last weekend, Mike and I were sitting down, and we're not looking at our portfolio as a house and, oh man, the oven went out, or the refrigerator, the furnace. We're looking at a P&L for performance. And that, I think, now you've maybe transitioned from just being an individual investor to maybe an entrepreneur, or, owning a portfolio, so to speak, when you start looking at it that way. And it's hard though. And the reason why I asked that question is, when you're growing a business and you have shiny object syndrome, there's, Mike and I, in our business alone, we have a few different channels in which we gain revenue. It takes a lot of time. And now where we're at is like, how do we escalate into having people do that? Where's our middle management? And it's hard to let go of things. And as Mike and I are finding out in our business, it's hard to let go of certain things and delegate it to others, because we've been doing it. It's all in our head right here.
Yeah. And it's happened so quickly as well. Like if you start to systematize and you start to scale, even like the snowball effect with real estate is so real. It's funny, like
Yeah.
Dan over the weekend sent me a photo of a house that we walked that was 2 years ago from over the weekend. And I want to say that was probably in the first 10 houses that we ever walked
Yeah. Yeah.
period.
We
Right. And
didn't
it was
buy it, and we didn't get to buy it though.
we didn't buy it. Yeah, we didn't even buy it, right? And that was
We
only two
wanted
years
to.
ago. And now we're,
Yeah.
we've had months where we've done 15 to 16 transactions of
Yeah.
walking 10 houses.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's a huge point, Mike. And yeah, at some point you guys really shouldn't be like walking the houses and really making any of those decisions. You know, there's better utilization of your time. And that's one thing I'm still struggling with and have for many years is like, I'm a perfectionist, as many entrepreneurs are, and you want to make sure, especially this is your baby, right? Your business, you want to make sure everything's done appropriately and but nothing will ever be 100%. But you got to have a little confidence of like almost like turning it off, I think, and not watching that stuff, understanding that it's not going to be done perfectly, and that there may be some challenges with that. But it really frees up your time to focus on the bigger picture, right, and the bigger things, which ultimately is going to allow your business to go to that next level. But it's like this internal battle too. I mean, at least for me.
Yeah, and I know Dan especially struggles with that because he wants everything done perfect his way. But I've always been kind of a delegator, and my sort of belief is you have to be willing to accept 80% of the results for 80% of your time back. And if you can do that, like, and you can capitalize on that time that you get back, then it's worth the reduced results that you're going to be getting. Just because hiring employees is great and it's important, but they're not going to care about your business as much as you are. No matter how much you feel like you want them to, or you try to sell them on it, like they got their own lives. They are going to have limited upside compared to you are in your business, and they're going to want to do other stuff after a while. And that's something that you just sort of have to deal with. But
I'm going to start taking notes and quoting you in our future episodes, Mike. You got some good key points you're throwing out.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, I appreciate it, Zach. Will we start to wind down here? There's just some questions that we like to ask people, just sort of to, I guess, sort of get inside, sort of what makes you so successful, and then also just hear about some of the real things that go on in the real estate business. That's kind of one of our MOs, is we want to hear not only the good, but also the crazy stories, so we're very open about those in our business. But I guess first off to start, what do you think is like, your secret sauce that's allowed you to be so competitive in this business? Because it is a super competitive business, right? So how have you been able to do so well with so many other people trying to do the same?
Man, I don't know. I feel like, and probably I would share the same, some of the same attributes that you guys would and anyone else that's successful. And I think this is probably less about me personally, just about just people that are successful in general. And it's just, man, I grind. Like, there's some points and now I have a family and stuff. And it's like my wife gets on my case, but then we also, take time out to do just family stuff. But sometimes you just got to put in the damn work and late at night. And so many people just don't want to do that, right? They want the easy way. And that's kind of where our society is headed, I think, unfortunately, is where's the easy success, right? And there is no such thing. And so you really got to just do the grind and accept the challenges and the obstacles as they come up, and just stay the course. I mean, there's been so many times where I've just wanted to throw my hands in the air and say, screw it. And we've lost a lot of money. I mean, we could probably talk about this, but we've lost millions of dollars in lending other people money and gotten screwed on it. And, that's very challenging emotionally, really. We recovered from it and really actually ended up forming better partnerships through people we met with that. But, it's just staying the course. And it's kind of like, I mean, I think for any military people that have heard the saying, like, ready, fire, aim. I mean, don't wait for the perfect deal. It's just get out and buy a deal and then buy the next one and buy the next one. And some of them are going to be crap. And then some of them are going to turn out way better than you expected. So it all balances out. But I think to summarize that, I would say just, actually just taking action and consistency over time.
I like that. Yeah, Dan and I are big believers, and I mean, we do like to hate on all the, a lot of realtors and investors and stuff. That man, they love to post the "I'm working from my boat" shot. It's like
rise and grind. Yeah, look, we're on the boat, but we're still working with our laptop. I mean, but
like,
I
really.
love it though. The problem, what you're saying, I think Mike and I relate to this totally. Is like you got to put in the time, and it's not always fun. But at least you're doing it for yourself and you're growing your business. And so many people want to get to the point to where they get to be they get to enjoy the fruits of their labor, but they haven't done the labor yet. So they're traveling and they're giving up their jobs and they're doing whatever they do that's cool on Instagram, but they actually haven't put in the work yet. And so that's so short lived because they want that immediate gratification.
And you see other people that's what Instagram is, I think, is it's a highlight reel of all the good, right? When the reality is you peel back the layers, it's like, we're sitting in an office, for 8 hours or longer than that. And just, dealing with the shit, but you gotta do it. And eventually pay off. And saying, I love that you just mentioned that, Dan, that you're doing it for yourself, right? Because that's what's remotivating. And it's really, I think all of us would attest, it's really less about us. It's about, our future and our families. And, and that's the why. You gotta have your why. We didn't leave our profession because we hated optometry. We love optometry, and helping people see, but we also help people be successful in real estate too. So
and like you mentioned there too, Dan, that can be outside your box as well. I'm sure you've done stuff way outside the scope of what you intended to, Zach. I mean, I know Dan and I, we've had Saturdays, dude. I'll always remember down in that basement at 6th Avenue, this mouse infested basement. We're down there because we need to get this thing rented out, and we're literally just total like rape dungeon, like creepy basement.
It's bad.
Where
it's bad.
we like have like laying all this moisture barrier. We're crawling through the muck, and it's just like we couldn't find a contractor who wanted to do it. So I was like, cool, I guess we're gonna do it ourselves.
We're gonna do it. Yeah,
someone's got to do it.
Or like having to call sellers, and deliver the bad news that we're not going to be able to close on their deal. Showing up early on Saturday to help people move, or like loading up trucks because the seller couldn't get it themselves, and it needs to be empty by Monday for the buyer to be able to buy it, right? Like all those things are so far outside the scope of what us as business owners should be doing. But I mean, then stuff has to get done. You have to be willing to put in that work.
Someone's got to do it.
Exactly. So awesome. I love it, Zach. We're right on the same page there. All right. So all these transactions you've done, what is your craziest real estate story that you've had? This can be something related to like a tenant, a transaction, a buyer, whatever you got, something that, we all have these unique situations. What's your craziest one?
You want crazy? Man, we have no shortage of crazy. Well, I don't want to be too morbid because there's been like a terrible murder scenario. So I actually don't want to go there. Let's keep it a little bit lighter than that. We'll do, as you're talking about mice infested. So this was actually early on. This is a wholesale deal that we did. That was in Detroit Lakes in Minnesota. So this is actually somewhat kind of close to your properties. I mean, not super, but I mean, in grand scheme of things, Detroit Lakes, it's like a huge vacation destination for people in Minnesota in the summertime. We found a property from a lady that it inherited this property from her husband. No one was living there. She had no leverage on it, so she owned it free and clear. But also, no one had like taken care of it, and the city has condemned it basically, and they've given her I don't know what it was, like 90 days or something to go in and do something with. And so she called one of our I think we had our bandit sign out there, and so went out and evaluated. Well, I think it was, if I remember the numbers correctly, I think we valued it on the assessor's site at like 120 or something like this, or maybe it was higher. We never gave her an initial offer at 50,000. We went to go tour the property, which was just the door was open, and just walked in, and there was probably 300 squirrels living in the house. And it was like, so I empathize with you on this, where it's like, we didn't actually even go in because they got like territorial and like screeching, from looking through holes in the attic and stuff, and just shit everywhere. And it was just, definitely a rabies infested environment. So we actually came back with like hazmat type of stuff. And pest control with us to kind of like, and they wouldn't even touch it either. They're like, basically got to get it demolished. We had to bring in some people from Minneapolis to actually evaluate it. But ultimately, this was a wholesale deal. I mean, we were thinking about potentially taking it on, but it's like, oh man, this is just way above our head right now.
Right.
We went back and renegotiated to actually buy the house at $10,000, or at least contracted
Nice.
at $10,000 because, and we had legit quotes to show, like
Right.
what kind of work needed to be done just for the animal control and then the rest of the rehab. But this house was in the perfect location. It was right on like the main street drive. You could look down, step out the front door, look down and see the lake. It's just an excellent location for that aspect. And she had to do something with it. Otherwise she would have had to pay, money to have the house. The house was going to be condemned. And so we had a clicking time clock too. So anyways, we got under contract, $10,000, ended up wholesaling it within, I think, 1 week to a local rehabber at $60,000.
Nice.
So we made $50K on just a wholesale deal within a few weeks. And he ended up rehabbing it and doing exceptionally well. I think he uses it as an Airbnb now, and it's
great.
Probably over, I don't know, over $500,000 at this point. So
nice. That's a great deal.
Everybody won in that scenario, but squirrels, had nightmares after that. So
yeah, right. That's a huge fee on that price point too, and I think that's one of the benefits of wholesalers as well. Is like realistically, that's a deal that no realtor would have touched. Even if you could have listed on the MLS for say like 50 or 60 grand. And a realtor has to go and like take people through the squirrel house that's all infested.
That's liability.
No
it's
way.
not happening.
They're not going to do that for 3% for $1,800. They're not even going to touch it, right? But that's wholesalers. We had one that was kind of similar. Now it was squirrels, but with raccoons. And I walked up in this place, and there was like a dozen raccoons. And I literally came around the corner, and they all stopped and like just stared at me. And I thought I was going to lose my face for a second, but then they all went sprinting out the window that was open in the room. Rodents are scary, man. No, that's a good one though. That's crazy.
Yeah, I love that. It's like a day in the life of a real estate investor right there.
See, I wish we were filming this stuff too. We should carry a little cam with us because some of that stuff is just hard to even fathom.
It really is. Awesome. So, I guess one last question for you here before we sign you off. Looking back, 2009, you've come tremendously well. You've done extremely well, right? When did you know that you made it, right? So I guess like when did you sort of have that internal feeling of going from, I'm trying to figure out to like, I'm doing it. Like this is awesome.
Mike, that's a good question because a lot of days we still feel like we haven't made it, right? We're still working.
For sure.
And I think that, that's okay though, because that's also that like fire, that's that motivation that's always driving you. I think, I think I probably experienced that at different stages. When our first house that we bought and was a duplex and we rented out half, and I was like, oh, this pays for the mortgage. Like, wow, that's a win. That works. The next stage was probably we got to the point where we were able to replace just our living expenses through rental properties, which could have been $3,000 a month or whatever it was, and that was a huge feeling of accomplishment. And then the next stage was like, okay, replace our active income through passive income, and also really scale the next business. But man, I don't know. We're at the point right now where we're just we have a lot of trajectory, and we're buying a lot of large retail centers, and we're just really dialed in, I think, and with our systems in place and with our partnerships in these different areas, with some different like excellent investment opportunities. We did get a chance to talk about the build to rent stuff, but some build to rent opportunities where people are just making like 6-figure equity positions like immediately. And we're doing a lot of those ourselves as well. So I think we feel like right now is a really good time where we're just dialed in. Now we got all sorts of chaos going on with interest rates, and people are concerned about the market. I'm not at all, because there's still a lot of opportunities. So right now is good, but I think we're always looking for the next thing. And I think that's part of that entrepreneurial spirit is you're never fully satisfied. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Yep. Yeah, but I know. I like that answer because I think a true entrepreneur always kind of feels that way. Even Dan and I literally last week when we were going over our P&Ls, like there's some ups and downs, especially over the last couple months. But then the next day he sends me the picture of that photo I mentioned before of the house that we walked by 2 years ago. I was like, dang, we have come a really long way since then.
It is. And I like that too. It's like a milestones, right?
Yeah.
And Mike, you had talked about when we had you on about your goals, like you found your old book, right? And you had your goals. And sometimes it's important to just, pat yourself on the back a little bit and like look at, cause you're in the grind all the time. It's like, am I really making progress? Like, and it's frustrating sometimes. Sometimes you got to actually schedule out time to look back and say, hey, this is where I thought I was going to be. This is my goal, and this is where I am. And that's some remotivation too.
Yeah. And there's no
Agreed.
right or wrong answer, because everyone's sort of why and their sort of end game is going to be different, and that's fine. Some people want to be Grant Cardone and be worth $1 billion. Some people want to have 10 paid off rental properties and make cash off that they live off of. So
Absolutely.
perfect. So right on, Zach. Well, I guess I did want to touch on your build to rents here really quick, but let's do that as the last question. So where can people find you, and what's a good I guess value proposition you can offer to everybody else, whether that can be the things that the build to rents that you're doing, your own education, your own podcasts. Where can they find you, and what's something you can offer to our listeners?
Sure. Yeah. Our business, Rent to Retirement, you go to our website, renttoretirement.com. That's the best place to just find out more about us, to find out about our team, our investment opportunities. That has links to all of our podcasts and YouTube and social media. We've tried to put out a ton of education. And I think that's we're just passionate about real estate. It's not just all about turnkey. We're all everyone on my team is a professional investor. And I've added them appropriately because of that. And we're just passionate about helping people along with whatever they're doing. If you're interested in buying turnkey with us, fantastic. If you need a good CPA, a real estate attorney, cost seg, 1031 guy, whatever the case is, we have some great networks for you. And I think that's important as far as value add. I've found, Mike, in my experience, that the people you surround yourself with and the networking that you develop is far more important for your success than any individual property. And so just being, surrounding yourself with the right people and working with them. And so I think that's really the value that we offer, whether you end up buying property with us or not. We are a group of successful investors that are passionate about helping other people. But we also have some great investment opportunities in parts of whether it's build to rent in areas like Texas and Florida, where there's just a ton of people moving, or that's just a good, solid Midwestern cash flowing property. We probably have a lot of things that would fit whatever your investment criteria is.
Perfect. I love it.
Love it.
Right on. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. If you have any interest in turnkey properties or hearing just more about what Zach has to say, go and check him out. Like I said, at renttoretirement.com. He also has an awesome podcast, which I think is just the Rent to Retirement podcast, right?
Yes. Yep. It is. Yep.
Perfect. So go check him out there as well. Besides that, if you enjoyed this show, go and subscribe and give us a 5-star review on wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're interested in learning from Dan and myself and being coached on kind of how we built our business, go and check out the instantinvestorprogram.com and see if you would be a good fit for our mastermind group. And then besides that, anything else for you guys, from either of you guys?
Did you want to talk briefly about build to rent?
Yeah. You want to touch on that? Sure.
Yes.
So real quick, as you're summarizing for anyone that's interested, one of the common things about turnkey is or common objections, or what people say, like, hey, I'm not getting any value, immediate equity created. I'm buying at the market value. Well, there is opportunities out there where you can come into immediate equity. In the build to rent space is one place that we've been able to create that simply by creating partnerships with builders, doing a volume price point with them, where you're able to build below market value, where an investor can actually participate in ground up construction, where you're buying well below the market value and have immediate equity. To run through numbers specifically right now, we are building both duplexes and single family houses in Southwest Florida and other parts of Florida as well. A single family is right around that $300,000 price point. Those houses today if they were completed today, have a market valuation between $400,000 and $430,000, and they rent out at $2,500 a month. And so that's positive cash flow on a brand new built house in a good area that has immediate equity. Now you have to be patient and take some time to go through that process. I mean, it could take 14 to 18 months to build the house. But likely, the market value for rents and price points will be higher than we are even seeing today. We've come full cycle with this, and we have some people that have whether they've actually decided to cash out, refinance, and pull their money back out to reinvest, or to sell their property. Every single person that's come full cycle has not had less than $150,000 of equity in their investments. We have plenty of actual addresses and case studies to share. But I love that aspect because you can have a little bit of your cake and eat it too by being in the path of progress in a great market with having positive cash flow. You just have to be patient for it to be built. And we all know right now there's a lot of delays in construction. So that's just one other interesting type of investment we offer to our clients.
Yeah.
Wow.
Doing like
I like that.
The Burr method on new construction properties. You can't beat that.
Yeah, we call it the build, rent, refinance, redo. So
there you go. I like it. Yeah. I mean, that sounds awesome. I mean, I make so you're saying you could build a house for $300,000, it rents for $2,500 currently, based on current. Man, that's pretty amazing. Plus all the equity you're getting into. I mean, I'm just looking at the numbers. Like, we can't build a house in our home market for that rents for that. I mean, those are great numbers, to be honest.
Yeah, and a year ago, because the people that have come full cycle, I mean, our rent projections at that point in time was 18 to 1850 on a 4.2, and on that same model, and I mean that still would have been like a 12% cash on cash return or whatever with regular financing. But just because you're in the right market, and we had about $30,000 of equity. Well, just being in the right market and in the path of progress now. Obviously the market's done exceptionally well, but now they're renting out because of population increases in rental demand at $2,500, and those are worth over $400,000. So
wow,
it's and of course this next year, people are concerned about like where the market's headed. I really look back at supply and demand. If you're in the right places, that's not going to change things dramatically. That's below the median house price point for that area. So your bread and butter rentals, I think, will do just fine. We probably won't have crazy appreciation over this next year, but we'll still have some.
Yeah, sure, definitely. But cool. I like it.
There's my plug for Build to Rent. Check it out.
I like it.
There you go. I like it. And then pause. I'm gonna cut that out too. What I'll do is I'll just swap those around when I edit it, so that way it'll be in the right order. I'm gonna go from there. So
okay, thanks for letting me put that in there. Yeah.
No worries. Yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you speaking out. Yeah, I wouldn't want you to miss out on that. So cool. All right, all right. Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Zach. And I guess anything else from either of you guys? Dan, you want to send us off?
Nope, I'm good. Yeah, let's see you guys all next week.
All right. You need a better send off than that. You always have something. The whole thing is Dan has a bad send off. Come on.
I know. I'm sorry. I've got what are we at now? 6 week old, 7 week at home, 7 week old baby at home. I just haven't been in the game lately, man.
Oh man.
Yeah. I'm tired.
You're not even to the sleeping through the whole night yet. Sort of
no.
thing, so.
You know what's funny is he slept through the night last night, which is actually the worst because you think your kid's dead, so you're up all night. You're like, why are they not awake crying?
Yeah. Man. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks so much, guys, and thanks for listening. Talk to you guys next week.
Okay.
Thanks for listening. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out at collectingkeyspodcast.com for tips and guides on starting your own real estate investment and wholesaling business.